Jane Edith Wilson, reading the story about the little drummer boy. All the holiday specials are being rebroadcast. Frosty and Grinch, and the gold standard of all holiday shows, A Charlie Brown Christmas, which I contend is the singularly greatest television show ever, seasonal or not. And always in the mix are those Rankin and Bass specials. You know them by heart if you were a child in the 60s and 70s. Rudolph, fresh off a stunning rejection from Santa, his coach, and his parents, looks soulfully at Clarice as she sings, "There's Always Tomorrow." The formerly terrifying winter warlock being taught by young Kris Kringle to put one foot in front of the other. But the Rankin and Bass show that actually impacted me most profoundly as a child was The Little Drummer Boy. Now you may not remember this one. It was a regular in the holiday rotation until the late 70s, but then it got pulled and it was rarely shown. The reason given was that the show was too overtly religious, but I contend they stopped airing it because too many small children were having nervous breakdowns watching it. To say that it is harrowing what the little drummer boy goes through during the course of this show is an understatement. Now, I was raised in a household where two major emotions were sort of frowned upon, anger and sadness. So I would sit and I would watch this special with my family, all tensed up and holding on to myself so tight, lest any feelings might pop up and make everybody else uncomfortable. When Little Drummer Boy starts off, he is living happily in the desert with his mom and dad in a very tasteful adobe-style house. Out of nowhere, tragedy strikes, as in the middle of the night, for no apparent reason, the family is attacked. Adding more pathos to the mix is the fact that British actress Greer Garson narrates the special in a sort of unrelenting, ham-fisted manner. "Bandits broke in, and then the little drummer boy's parents were killed right in front of him, and their house burned to the ground." We see Little Drummer Boy, who has managed to escape, watching the scene play out, little fire flames reflected in his shiny claymation eyeballs. Then Greer really piles it on. "The little drummer boy was forced to flee his village and wander through the desert with nothing but his camel and his lamb." So already it's just horrible and terrifying, and the opening credits have barely just wrapped up. So Little Drummer Boy makes his way across the hot desert and encounters this band of traveling musicians. Well, they're all stoked because they need a drummer, and immediately ask Little Drummer Boy to gig with them. Unfortunately, even though Little Drummer Boy has mad skills, the dude in charge of the band loses it on him because when he plays, Little Drummer Boy can't stop crying. Yeah. You want to know why? 2 words. Dead parents. So they paint this huge, garish smile on Little Drummer Boy, hit another gig, and it all looks to be going great until Little Drummer Boy can't keep it together and he cries the painted-on smile right off his face. So they fire him, and they don't give him a cent of what he's earned, drumming away through his pain and grief. Then Little Drummer Boy is back to making his way aimlessly through the desert with his animals, and I am just watching this show thinking, how much more can he take? How much? Anyway, he arrives in Bethlehem and sees that there's something brewing in this barn and makes his way in. He spies baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph, who look like a really together couple, and he thinks, I'm going to go over there. And he starts to make his way to them, and his lamb gets all excited and runs ahead. Out of nowhere, this chariot suddenly races through and creams the lamb. Little Drummer Boy goes and scoops the lamb's limp little body off the ground and starts walking toward the manger area, looking intently at Mary like, "Sister, you better help me out here because I don't know how much more of this BS I can stand." He gets right up in her face, and Mary turns to Little Drummer Boy, who starts to play his drum like he's in some sort of strung-out daze. Mary solemnly nods her approval, and suddenly, that little lamb springs back to life. I cannot tell you how happy Little Drummer Boy is as he hugs up on his lamb, who is so healthy again, he even jumps in the air a little bit. And every year, as I watch this show, I would be so relieved that that lamb wasn't dead, that one good thing had finally happened to that poor Little Drummer Boy, and I was also just so scared to even sigh lest I fall completely apart. And my mother would finally say, "It's all right, Jane. You can cry." And I would finally let out a breath of air, and with it, deep sobs and buckets of tears. And after about a minute or 2 of this, my mom would say, "Okay, that's enough. It's time for Barnaby Jones. Looks like it's going to be a good one."